What if I told you that you're living a lie? That everything you believe about who you are, what you should do with your life, and even what's right or wrong might just be an illusion you accepted without questioning? Jean-Paul Sartre believed that nothing in you is fixed, and the only real thing is your freedom and the weight of your choices. But are you really choosing? In this video, we'll dive into the philosophy that can flip your worldview, and maybe for the first time, give you control over your own existence. Are you ready for that? What do a fork and a train have in common? Though completely different, both were created with a specific purpose. A fork was designed to eat food, sharing its purpose with other utensils like a spoon or chopsticks. A train was made for transportation, not just for humans, but also for animals and goods. A fork and a train have an inherent purpose. They were brought into existence for something, with one or more specific functions. If a fork fails to fulfill its purpose, we might call it a bad fork. The same goes for trains, which as a resident of the Netherlands, I might say we have plenty of bad ones. But what about humans? Do we also have a predefined built-in function, an essence? Or is there something fundamentally different about us? The French existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre believed that, apart from our biological traits, humans come into existence without a predefined essence. Unlike forks and trains, we are fundamentally free to create our own identity and define our own purpose. This idea is at the core of Sartre's existentialism. So since you're free anyway, you're also completely free to support this channel. Define yourself as a Patreon supporter, which grants access to ad-free videos, topic voting, and free merchandise. You can also follow me on social media for updates and more. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy this video. A brief biography. When naval officer Jean-Baptiste Sartre died, his son Jean-Paul was just 1 year old. This loss brought Jean-Paul closer to his mother, Anne-Marie Schweitzer, as they lived under the care of her devout Protestant grandfather, Charles Schweitzer. While Sartre admired Charles's intellect, he rejected his religious and traditional values. Sartre's relationship with his mother changed significantly when she remarried, and he was no longer the center of her life. Sartre disliked his stepfather, a man of authority who embodied the typical bourgeois values Sartre would oppose throughout his life. Sartre's intellectual journey was deeply intertwined with Simone de Beauvoir, whose philosophy I explored in another video. The two met while studying in Paris and became lifelong companions. Their open relationship challenged traditional norms and values, much like their philosophical ideas. Both in their own way became key figures in existentialism. Sartre became one of the most influential thinkers in French intellectual history. Unlike the father of existentialism, Søren Kierkegaard, who centered his philosophy on God. Sartre's main works include Being and Nothingness, Existentialism is a Humanism, and his novel Nausea. Why consciousness matters. Before diving into Sartre's views, let's briefly explore the roots of his philosophy. Sartre's philosophy is built on understanding consciousness, how we experience and interact with the world. According to Sartre, consciousness doesn't exist on its own. It's always focused on something, whether an object, a person, or even something imagined. In other words, consciousness depends on the world around it to exist. Sartre noted that when we're conscious, we're also aware of our own consciousness. We know we exist. This idea relates to René Descartes, who inspired Sartre and argued that the only thing we can be absolutely certain of is our own consciousness. Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. Sartre builds on Descartes' view, agreeing that we can be sure of our consciousness. However, Descartes also assumed a separation between the self and the body, mind-body dualism, which Sartre didn't accept. Sartre saw consciousness as more fluid and elusive. Sartre shaped his view of consciousness through Edmund Husserl's phenomenology, which holds that consciousness is always directed towards something, a concept called intentionality. While Sartre agreed with this, he rejected Husserl's idea of a transcendental ego, a stable, internal self like a rock amidst the waves of our experiences. Sartre believed consciousness is nothing, meaning it has no fixed content. It's shaped and formed by directing itself toward the external world. This nothingness of consciousness is central to Sartre's existentialist ideas, which we'll explore shortly. There's much more to Sartre's theory of consciousness, but for brevity, let's pause here and expand when needed. Now let's move to what Sartre said about why we're here and how we're supposed to live, likely the reason most people are watching this video. Existence precedes essence. If Sartre could explain his philosophy in 3 words, it would be, existence precedes essence. This central existentialist belief is that we aren't designed for a specific purpose. Unlike a fork or a train, our existence has no fixed essence. We exist first, the essence comes later. Sartre argued that we're thrown into this world, and no God or higher entity tells us why or what to do. Life doesn't come with a manual or an explanation of why we're alive. We're just here, facing a giant void, a question mark, an unresolved mystery. Asking why we're here is pointless, as the seemingly indifferent universe stays silent. As Sartre said, man simply is. Not that he is simply what he conceives himself to be, but he is what he wills, and as he conceives himself after already existing, as he wills to be after that leap into existence. Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. That is the first principle of existentialism. So we're left with an inherently indeterminate existence. Life is like a blank canvas. There are no fixed rules for this game, no set goals, no overarching purpose. Morality and ethics are human-made. None are definitive or absolute. Any claim of a universally correct path or presupposed way of life is false. The only truth is the blank canvas and our conscious ability to fill it. The connection between Sartre's view of consciousness and his existentialist ideas is probably becoming clear. But let's dig a bit deeper. It's the nothingness of our consciousness, the absence of fixed content, that allows us to create our essence, to paint our canvases as we wish. This typically human trait sets us apart from other objects and beings. To explain this further, Sartre distinguished 2 modes of existence, being in itself and being for itself. Being in itself refers to the existence of things or objects that simply are what they are. They lack consciousness or awareness. Their essence is fixed. They can't change themselves, reflect on their existence, or desire to change. A fork and a train are beings in themselves. They are what they are. A fork doesn't wonder why it's a fork or what else it could be. A train can't reflect on its purpose. It's bound by its essence. Being for itself is quite different. Unlike being in itself, it's not fixed. It's constantly in flux, always in the process of becoming, which might remind you of Nietzsche. It defines itself through its actions and has no predetermined existence. Being for itself can reflect on itself and its place in the world because it's conscious and aware of its surroundings. This mode of being is exclusive to humans. Of course, part of our humanity is inherent, what Sartre and Beauvoir called facticity. Facticity includes your biology, skin color, country of birth, or whether your parents are wealthy. In short, the circumstances or facts about your life you can't control. But facticity doesn't define who you are. Your actions define you. Whatever you do, you become. Choices have consequences. Our existence without a predefined essence gives us tremendous freedom. Infinite possibilities allow us to walk infinite paths, from small decisions like what to have for dinner to major life choices like which career path to take. We're free to choose any of them. This is great, but since we're free to do as we please, and our lives lack a fixed moral or ethical essence, can't we just do a bunch of bad things and get away with it? Take breakfast, for example. Instead of eating the bowl of cornflakes in front of us, we can't just grab that bowl, walk out the front door, and smash it on someone's head. Well, according to Sartre, that's not how existentialism works. On the contrary, mon ami, existentialism comes with great freedom, but also great responsibility. Freedom comes with responsibility. It's actually quite simple to explain. Consider the atheist existentialist viewpoint and assume there's no God or similar divine authority to guide you. Sure, there's Jordan Peterson and his 12 rules for life, but apart from that, you're in charge. If you don't have God as a guide or authority, you also don't have God as an accountability partner. In other words, if, in the absence of God, you're completely free to live your life, you must also be completely responsible for your choices. If there's no one to answer to, you're the one responsible. As you've probably witnessed, choices have consequences. For example, you're free to smash a bowl of cornflakes on someone's head, but that action will likely lead to the police knocking on your door. According to Sartre, we're not only responsible for our deliberate choices, we're responsible for the entirety of our lives, including our facticity. This doesn't mean, for instance, that a war breaking out is our fault. It means we're responsible for any action or inaction we take in such circumstances. Even inaction is a choice. Inaction in the face of human suffering was a big issue for Sartre. Unlike Descartes, who focused on the certainty of one's own consciousness, Sartre emphasized the existence of other people's consciousness through lived experience, using Husserl's phenomenological method. In short, part of our responsibility is recognizing that others suffer like we do. Do not do to others what you don't want done to you. Not because it's written in the Bible or Confucius said it a couple of millennia ago, but because we're all interconnected. Our choices affect others, and their choices affect us. We even experience their presence shaping us, which Sartre described through the concept of the gaze. Sartre famously said, "Hell is other people, not because others are inherently bad, but because we can't escape the influence of their judgments and expectations. Others make us see ourselves from the outside." Moreover, Sartre argued that our choices concern humanity as a whole. We're not just affecting others, we're also setting an example. Through our choices, we represent what we stand for, our morals, principles, and whether we're cowards or not. Whatever we become resonates across humanity, and so our choices shape not only ourselves, but our entire species. Unfortunately, as Sartre observed, many people deny their freedom and, with it, this responsibility. Bad faith. We often consider freedom desirable. Who wouldn't want to be free? Who wouldn't want to define their own lives? But Sartre observed that freedom terrifies people. So many try to escape it. Sartre admitted that the freedom he outlined can be frightening. What should we do when there's no external guide or predetermined meaning to rely on? If Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life aren't objectively and universally valid, how should we live? What choices should I make, since they seem infinite? And what's the point of living anyway if there's no heaven or divine purpose to work toward? Even scarier is the responsibility that comes with this freedom. Imagine there's no God, boss, political party, parent, or any authority responsible for your actions. Just you. Who can you blame if the consequences of your choices aren't pretty? To escape existentialist freedom, humans do what they often excel at. They deceive themselves. Instead of embracing their freedom, including the weight of their responsibility as free, self-creating beings, people engage in bad faith. Bad faith is a way of denying your freedom by deceiving yourself. Even though you know you're free, you convince yourself you're not. For example, you're working a job you hate but have convinced yourself you have no choice. You need the money to pay the bills, so you must keep slaving away in that cubicle. Without denying your financial pressure, Sartre would say you're acting in bad faith. You've convinced yourself you have no choice when, in reality, you do. You have infinite choices. Let's face it, you could quit right now. You could simply not go to work tomorrow morning and grab a bagel somewhere. You could run naked through the street. You could hop on a plane and fly to another continent if you have the money. You could buy a sailboat and sail across the Atlantic. You could even smash a bowl of cornflakes on someone's ear. See the abundance of options? That's freedom. Regardless of the consequences, you're still completely free to do any of these things. Bad faith means pretending this freedom isn't there. You're just doing what you're supposed to do, which also implies a lack of responsibility. A soldier who killed many but defends his actions by saying he was just following orders? Guess what? He's acting in bad faith too. Having a superior tell you what to do isn't an excuse for Sartre. You had the freedom to choose, and you chose to kill. The same goes for people who claim to act in the name of God. But Jesus made me do it. How convenient to make God responsible for your actions. In general, living in bad faith is inauthentic. It prevents you from fully realizing your potential. Why? Because it denies the central traits of being human, freedom and the ability to create meaning through our choices. It denies you as a being for itself. The beauty of existence precedes essence, is that the essence of your life is up to you. As Sartre wrote, man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. Your life is yours to create. Don't let others do it for you. Sartre's philosophy isn't comfortable. It doesn't promise easy answers or a divine purpose to justify your existence. On the contrary, it throws you into the world with total freedom and immense responsibility. There's no manual, no essence, just you and what you do with who you are. You can keep acting on autopilot, repeating what you were told was right, or you can accept that. At the end of the day, your life is yours, and every choice, even the smallest, is building you. So the final question isn't who am I, but who am I choosing to be? If this reflection stirred something in you, consider supporting the channel on Patreon and join a community of restless minds who are also questioning.